She'll put 6 seats and 5 seats, she says.
Could we have everyone please stand for the pledge and then remain standing for the land acknowledgement statement? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we will be reading the Prospect Elementary School Land Acknowledgement Statement. Prospect Elementary School knows that it stands on the homeland of the Anandawatka and in Ohio territory. We know that in the Seneca children and families have gone through a lot because of Kinsua Dam and boarding schools. We offer care and support for the children and grandchildren of the people who endured those things and live here today. While we cannot undo what has been done, Prospect Elementary stands with all Indigenous peoples. It is our goal to make improvements that will benefit the next 7 generations of Indigenous students. Thank you.
Do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do not, actually.
Then I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Dale. Second by Brad. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. And I guess we're gonna start out with a look picture. So, do we want to wait? Because he should be here. I didn't say that he wasn't. Yeah, I imagine you will. Let's go on to our board appreciation. How about that?
Terrific board appreciation night. Last meeting, we also recognized the effort and work that the school board does. Tonight, we are going to continue to do the same. Karen, do you want to?
So because you are the Board of Education, we got a charcuterie board.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
hang it on your wall if you'd like to with logo on this side. You can use it on this side, whichever you like. So Board of Education cutting board.
Yay. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Just showing what our present, be careful on the board.
You can.
We're getting charcuterie board.
Who is?
All of us for board appreciation.
Just the board.
Really?
Yeah. Show Carrie, Karen. Oh,
I saw everyone.
Yeah. Goes by family.
that's awesome.
And the bag that they came in is a thermal bag that we gave out to one of the employee recognition this spring.
Thank
In addition, there is a certificate from the New York State School Board in honor of School Board Recognition Week for the dedicated leadership in public education and continuing service to the children of our community.
Yay, thank you.
Mr. Long, did you want to?
Yes, on behalf of Chris and I in the high school, there's a big bag in front of you. Celebrate with, we celebrate you. And then I just say it's always fun when you're questioning about the amazing things at Salamaker that you can go right to the board and say, you know what, we have a fully supportive board that says it's good for kids and want to support us. So thank you for what we have to do for our student body.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the new teacup. So then we can move on to the picture.
All right, perfect. So we are set up for the board picture in the library. And for our guests, we will return very shortly.
Next, we're gonna go on to our recognition for Brooke Canale and Brandy Kim.
Brandy went to the restroom. Oops, sorry.
Too late. No, just kidding.
Well, I know Mr. Long is going to really take over from here, so we'd like to come down. There she is. Awesome. Oh, there she is, yeah.
So, I'll wait for her to get settled. She's sharing. We're very happy to have Brooke and Brandy here tonight to be recognized for the work that they do and the award they were presented from the Board of Regents. They were presented the Lewis E. Yavner Teaching Awards commemorating outstanding contributions in teaching about the Holocaust and other human rights violations as co-winners of the award for teachers. At the presentation, Chancellor Young was quoted saying, "Recent incidents of anti-Semitism and racism exemplify the continuing and critical need for the work these educators have dedicated themselves to. They understand the power history can have on our future and illustrate for our young people the importance of standing up and speaking out against hatred and injustice." He was honored to present the 2022 Yavner Awards to Mrs. Kinney and Mrs. Canale. Also quoted at the presentation was Commissioner Rosa, who stated, "Using real-life accounts and artifacts, these women open a window to the past for students to support learning and civic readiness. They are leaders and mentors to their colleagues and have developed lessons that stay with students well beyond their school years, helping them to become adults engaged in the world around them." I'm very happy to congratulate both of you. Brooke and Brandy, you make Salmaker proud. Thank you for the work you do.
Yes, we want a speech. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I know. Thanks, everybody.
Well, would you mind just giving a bit of a rundown as to what the project entails?
Yeah, so, we've been working together here for a very long time, it feels like. And we started looking at some of the, as we went to some of the other conferences and have been learning about all the new technologies that are coming through. We were trying to think about ways to engage students and make it more real life, and put research and make it fun, and how to tie these two together. And so that's kind of where we came up with the Atrocity Museum, and it has been growing each year as technology changes and what our school has access to. We've been able to incorporate, things that seem kind of crazy, maybe other places, and that's one of the awesome parts is we think of these things that might be, what a real museum is able to do, and then we actually can use our technology and the school lets us grow and make these things and do these things with the kids. So,
Also, well, first, actually, thanks to the board and actually Mr. Seaver and Ms. Schnacker and Mr. Strauss, because we would not have been able to do any of this without a lot of support. And I think one of the things that enabled us to do this is the amount of PD we're offered, and that we were never told no. Whenever I said, I'm a history teacher and I want to learn how to 3D print. When I talked to other teachers, they're like, well, why would you do that? Or why are you creating a virtual museum? Or why are you doing all this technology stuff? You're just history. And that, I think, was inspiration for me, at least. Like, I'm not going to be left behind because I'm just history. It's not something that people normally think of as, what schools are looked at for. It's all math and science, it's not history. And I just decided I was going to bring history into mainstream and with technology and not give up on it, and make sure that the stories are told of the people who have passed before us, and then make that personal connection to Salamanca. Last year, the juniors last year learned so much about human rights violations, of things that they never even knew existed. And I told them stories about, genocide they never heard of and their parents hadn't heard of. And I think that was some of the point too, and then to bring it all together. And there was always a writing component. They always had to do research and base everything that they created on facts and, back up their ideas. And so it's not just me saying what I feel, but I can base all of this on facts. And then we put it together in this nice museum. And then they could display it to everyone too. They're very proud of their work and proud of, all like the 3D printing and then the diary entries that they created. And now we're taking it to another level with adding in virtual reality and, it's a lot of fun too. So as teachers, like we're not doing the same thing all the time and we get to learn more as well. Constantly coming up with new ideas on how to add this together. And I just want to say, I refuse to let history just be in the back burner because it was for a long time. And so this is the way to put it in the front more and take what we have here and, you know, not just make it about STEAM being math and science and engineering, but there's other components to that as well, the arts.
The kids were able to do reflection, which sometimes we forget about that part of something, like we do it, it's over, and that's the end. And the kids were able to reflect, which was scary for them, reflecting on the things that they've done throughout the year and actually acknowledging something that they were proud of. And we talked about, you know, I mean, it's an atrocity museum, all the things that mankind has done that maybe we weren't proud of, but they also had to express what is something that they are proud of and being proud of the things that they did and what they could work on. If they got to add technology, like what if they were the teacher, what would they do next? You know, and pass those ideas on to us, understanding that what they did, what they liked, what was interesting to them would actually be used by us as teachers to reflect on our own, you know, plans to go to the next group of kids. You know, what can we make better? What can we do that would have been more exciting or add, you know, different technology and ideas? And so that reflection by them, I think it meant even more because they realized that we were using their ideas and making what they did last longer than just that class period. And so it was really nice for them. And when we had the museum and we're a little shaky about it, you know, and it was the first time running that in the library, when staff members were coming through, whether it was custodians, liaisons, teachers, like maybe they didn't even know what was going on. And we sent out invites to everybody and they actually toured the museum with brochures and and they got to vote on, you know, who's the best of this and ask questions to each other and engage in the museum. That made it a little bit more exciting for them. So they were able to see other people and all of a sudden they got a little like, well, did you see mine over here? And that was really nice because they were kind of afraid to put themselves out there after so long of not putting themselves out there. And now they, reflecting back at being in 11th grade, they come back to me, hey, for, you know, for B class, for this, could you get up my project? Could you show me this? Could I have a picture of this? Could you, you know, do these things for us? And so I think that that was just a taste of what those guys could do. And now they're a little bit jealous because the next grade level is getting a little bit more time with it. And they're like, well, we didn't get to do that in our museum yet. Yeah, but you gave us the idea. And so I think that it's really, you know, leading into something even better. And it wasn't just, you know, one key component. It was technology. It was the teachers here that helped and the staff members and the board and the students to keep it going. And that's really, you know, what our purpose was, is this isn't going to die out and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. And they're telling their families are coming in and it's just going to keep going. So that was really exciting. We want all the other kids to be jealous and want to be in the museum too.
Yeah.
You know, so
And just so you're aware too, that, they all got credit sorry, for the civic seal of, the New York State, engagement civic seal, sorry. If they completed this project, it's all points they can gain towards that. It's like a CTLE, but for history that can replace, like if they don't pass a Regents exam, this can help replace that for their graduation requirements, and it can be something added to their diploma. So by creating this project, they got 1.5 points out of the 6 total that they need in order to get this accreditation. And if they continue to do something like this every year, the goal in the history department is that all students will have all 6 points by the time they're seniors, so that they all can get this accreditation on their diploma. And then also, I mean, you're not going to see this hard data, but I did have more students pass the Regents exam this year than I've ever had before. And I think a lot of it is because when they were writing the essays, the 3 parts on the Regents exam, the essays were a lot higher this past year. And it's because they all wrote about human rights violations and they all wrote about things they learned in this museum. And a lot of them wrote about the connection in the world in Salamanca and, you know, let's throw them Native Americans. So that wasn't the intent at first, but, you know, it helped. And that is, you know, another good thing about this project too.
They're writing on the English test about historical things and on the history test about things they learned in English, and it was like the light bulb, you know, it's all interconnected, and that's awesome. Because it's nice to see that there's a carryover in their vocabulary, and it's improving all these different areas, but we're disguising it as fun. So don't tell them.
Could you just describe, because you talked about creating an atrocity museum, but you literally created an atrocity museum.
Yeah.
So maybe I had a chance to see it, but could you just describe like a big picture of what actually did it look like?
Every marking period, they looked at 4 different historical events through the eyes like it's an atrocity, things that aren't normally categorized in that way. And so they learned all the content with me, and then with us together, they created essentially 4 exhibits in their own museum. So if they could open up a museum, it's gonna be called the Atrocity Museum. These are the 4 events, and then they 3D printed something. So some classes 3D printed something from the Industrial Revolution, some from World War II or I, some from the French Revolution. So that was one part of their exhibit, something they 3D printed. And then they had a little plaque that they created, and they wrote that described what that artifact was and how it's categorized as an atrocity. And then they had to do diary entries about the French Revolution. They had to imagine that they were in one of the estates and what they would have lived through in the horrible event. They had to get a certain number of horrible events from the French Revolution into that diary entry, but write it from the perspective like they lived it. Then they created, the Flipgrid was a reflection, so video of themselves. They had to write a real traditional MLA paper as well. And so they learned how to do citations and all of that. And then the paper for the pathway. Oh, yeah, then the reflection for the civic seal that they had to do as well. And then for that one, they had to say, they had to write in if they could fix Salamanca, kind of, you know, what would they do? And what mistakes have we made in the past that we could, now that we know about atrocities and more about human rights violations, what could they themselves do in the future to help make Salamanca a better place and to break the cycle of human rights violations everywhere that they go. And all this was together in their nice little exhibit in front of them. And they stood there, and then other kids got to see what they were doing, and they had to talk. That was part of their grade. They had to present their little museum to other people, and then they got the chance to also go around and see everyone else.
So all in the library, and for how long
The
the
whole day.
library
and-
was,
and,
just one day?
Yeah,
Oh,
The actual exhibit part, yeah. Well, we set it up before, but
Miss Eaton's classes all came down and they would do questions. So some people brought their whole, were able to get certain grade levels to commit to coming that first time and just voting and, as you know, some of the seniors would come in from, you know, study hall and be like, hey, want to go vote on all these projects? Like, come check them all out. And they actually were being really tough on them and saying, well, why did you choose this? And, you know, you better sell it to me. And so it was the start of them putting that together. And one period presenting their own project and being this, you know, the curator of that museum. And then when they would be in, like, maybe that would be my class, and then when they were in her class, they would go back to the library and they would get to be the people that walked around and checked things off their brochure and did all the activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Would you mind coming down for a photo? Yeah, the video back, right there. Twenty birds, very good backdrop, so he's doing that.
This is your birthday.
Time to do the whole- There we go.
someone's the glamorous.
Ready? 1, 2, and 3. 1 more, 2, 3. All right, sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you.
Well, that's gonna be a tough act to follow.
Maybe people want to give a speech.
So we'll move on to our long-term facilities plan.
This has really been a project of Karen, so.
More than a year ago. Way more than a year ago. We talked about the need for a long-term facility plan and, Karen, being who she is, decided that, you know, she could take this on and figure it out herself, and then reality hit, and yeah, that's not gonna happen. So, through the course of our interviews for, our architect, we came across Alyssa, and, it was like, you know, the world exploded and this brilliant idea came across that we're hiring Alyssa. So Alyssa and her team at Young and Wright have pulled all of our information together into this long-term facility planning piece. And it was a lot of steps and a lot of work on a lot of people's parts. But I mean, really, without these guys, it would still be in my dreams at this point. But once well, not once it's done, because it is done now. Mark and I are going to make it a point to have it on the agenda on a quarterly basis so that we update it for different things that are going on, because Alyssa has mentioned in more than one meeting that we do things completely different from other districts and we move like this. So, you know, this might even be outdated at this point, who knows? But Alyssa and Richard are going to present the plan for you, and any questions that you have, feel free to fire away and that'll help you.
Gotta work on Karen's dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is what she's dreaming about at night. I'm getting- Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. While she said Alyssa, Alyssa also is not a one-man show by any means. There's about 50 people. So thank you very much for that introduction. But Rick had a huge role in this over the course of last year, and then there's 10 other people behind the scenes that actually make this happen. So the Young and Right crew is what makes the long-term plan possible. So while we're here, we get to share all of the work that has been done over the course last year. But we are merely facilitators. I would say that this group put it, you know, Karen and Mark, Kristen and Rich put in a ton of effort into this and making it happen. And then there were so many people involved, and we'll touch on that throughout the course of the last year. We actually sat right here about a year ago, promising this to you. If you can see the slide on the screen, this is what we presented to you guys after we talked about the building condition survey and how important it was to turn that into a long-term plan. And this was the diagram that we promised at that time that said, hey, we're going to look out 10 years. All right, we're going to look at our facilities for 10 years. We're going to look at all the different types of projects that there are and try to put all these things into buckets. It was a big promise at the time. We promised a living document and a communication tool. Fast forward 1 year, and we're here to talk about just those things. Much like the bills, we trusted the process for the last year and worked through a whole bunch of things. So Young and Right, building a long-term plan has two halves to it. There's the honey-do list, right? Your building has needs, the roofs need to be replaced, the windows need to be done, the boilers need to be replaced. That's the honey-do list, right? Everybody's house has one of those too. But then there's the want-to-do list, like, oh no, we want to renovate the kitchen, or we want to renovate the cafeteria, or we want to look at putting on an addition, or all the fun things. And so those two things have to come together to have a truly successful long-term plan. And that's where most of the work came in over the course of last year. Rick led the team during that process. I'm going to let him talk through those items.
So thanks, Alyssa. So like she said, it is really a two-step process that we went through, and there were several meetings and a lot of work that was involved to get this done. And I use done as a loose term because this is a living and breathing document that will continue to update as time goes on. So the first side of things is the building condition survey, and we sent a team of architects and engineers down here to analyze all the facilities at Salamanca. We had people crawling through every nook and cranny of the facilities, taking a look at where we're at as it stands right now, the condition of everything that we can get our eyes on. And that really creates the foundation of where we start with a long-term plan. We know what we need to update, and there's a scale that we put these items that we review on, all the way from excellent to non-functional. And this, sort of lays our groundwork of what should be done, or what must be done, what should be done, or should be done, and then what's nice to do further down the line. So this BCS generates a list of hundreds of items, and we sat through several meetings with Mark, Karen, Kristen, and Rich.
Those aren't short meetings, and we had to bring lunch sometimes to make them get through. This is hundreds of items we're talking about, every roof, every window, every boiler, everything.
lots and lots and lots of items. And we went through the arduous process of essentially putting a number to each one of those items. So one being must is like the first top priority that you want in your next project. 2 being should is sits more in your 5-year plan. 3 as nice sits in your 10-year plan. And then we can also isolate items such as M there for maintenance items that can be handled internally. And then O are smaller items that can be placed in capital outlay projects that are on a yearly basis. So we sifted through all of the buildings honeydew side of the needs. And then we set all the priorities, and then that was kind of the easy part of the process. The more interesting and
More time intensive.
more time intensive portion of this is the sort of the space and district needs side of things, and that's more of focusing on the people in the district and where they see this going and where they see the needs of the district, on the ground level, people here every day. So, we
Castle-wide net.
we created the survey and got it into as many hands as we could. And sort of
You can see a list of people on the screen that were involved in this, but really this went out to the full administration team that meets monthly, basically saying, what are some of the things that you guys are considering needing to do? On the next slide, you can see some of the questions that we asked and went through with them.
Yeah, so good survey is all about asking the right questions, right? So, it did involve a large and diverse team. And, we were looking to create a foundation of understanding of the needs and ideas of the facilities and the members inside of them. So, we're asking questions like, what are your most important issues of the space? And, we're talking to bus drivers who are saying they need more bathrooms in their transportation facilities. And we're asking, what needs to be repaired, replaced, or updated? And we're talking to middle school teachers about how they need to upgrade their lockers. And then, we get into the larger new capital needs. And we're talking to people like the athletic director who, emphasize the need for more indoor practice space during the winter times, and how a field house may be, in your future, as well as, elementary school teachers and their desire to, get influence on children under the kindergarten level. So we're talking about, early childhood development center. And all of these things come together, and, we got a variety of different responses. Those were just some of the major items that I hit on, but we pages and pages and pages of responses that people really bought in on this process. And then, we sat down with Karen, Kristen, and Mark, and Rich, and pretty much the same thing that we did with our BCS items. And we flushed through what's a real action item, what's a must, a should, a need, and then, reprioritize those in the context of, building needs, and then kind of brings us to the next step of the workshop and planning phase, which also will run us through.
Then we got to have some fun. Then we got our sticky notes. So we'll show you those, don't worry. But then we talked about what types of projects are we considering, right? What buckets are we going to put this in as we look out across 10 years? Are we going to look at capital outlays? Okay, yes, that's something you'd like to look at. All right, let's start to put those on an annual basis. All right, we're going to look at capital improvement projects. Let's look at what you're already doing, which I will admit is a ton and always moving, as Karen referenced. What do you want to look out towards doing? Again, an always moving target and an always evolving idea based there. What property purchases are you looking at? What grants are available? Again, things pop up all the time. Clean Free Schools Act is a new one on the list. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not. But Smart Schools Bond, things like that, ARPA funds you guys are utilizing. What types of projects can be a maintenance project, things like that. So we agreed on all the different types of projects that should be on the list to start. Not to say you won't add one next week or in 2 weeks. But then we got into the sticky notes. All right, what are those current projects? You'll see some of those on the screen in the orange there. What are the BCS priorities? The high school must do's. What are the high school should do's? What's prospects must do's? What are prospects should do's? The space ideas and suggestions, all those myriad of ideas that Rick just ran through. You'll see a bunch of those on the list there. Community feedback, things that had been brought to the group by the community saying this is something that we feel that we need. And then, like we said, those new funding sources. All those sticky notes, then the goal was to look out over time. Actually, if you wanted to pass this around, this is helpful. So then we started to look out over time. This was a very iterative process and a lot of, well, what if we did this and what if we moved that there? But it started to take shape. It started to say, okay, if we were doing $100,000 outlays, this is the types of things we could stick there.
This is a cleaned up version of a very fun day. We also involved the financial advisor at that point to say, is there a timeline when debt is falling off, things like that, get some input there. But this ultimately resulted in the copy of the long-term plan that you're looking at tonight. When you look at this, picture each box as a project or funding source, but also picture it as a sticky note. This is very much so something that will live and move and move. The copy that you look at tonight, when you look at it again in a quarter, I promise it will change every single month that we've met with the group. In the sense, not in a bad way, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. It's gonna look familiar, it's gonna feel familiar, you're gonna know kind of what it is every time it's put in front of you, but it will change. So time goes left to right across the top. So if you're looking at the first page, you'll see each fiscal year across the top. And if you look in the second column, you'll probably look at some very familiar items. Your phase 3.3 at Prospect and 3.4 at the high school district office. So those red projects are capital improvement projects. If you look at the yellow, those are property purchases. So you can see some that you've already completed and some that might be being eyed up as you move forward there in 23 and 24. You can see unique funding sources like grants in blue and green. So you can see the ARPA funds there for the theater siting and sound and lighting. And then if you look forward, there's a Clean Green Schools Act that's a possibility that may be something that could be earmarked for some mechanical work at the high school. If you look at the center of the page, you can see some ideas for 23 and 24. So moving forward, phase 4, which is already planned, and you can see the scope that's associated with that and the dollar amount. And then possibly another project that includes some of the high school and Prospect BCS priority 1 items. So those must-do type of things that came out of the what your building needs. You can also see some of those big picture items, the early childhood center, transportation center. If you look into the last column on the right-hand side of the page, again, you can see more of those big picture ideas, field house, athletic storage, possibly a net zero house, things like that. All of these are very much so an intent and a draft and a place to save things so that when someone comes to you with another idea, you have a spot to put it down, right? When someone says, hey, we want to renovate the art rooms at the high school, you have a spot to pencil that in. Okay, you know what, we've already got 23 and 24 planned out, but maybe that's something we can do here. And you can put it in the same spot. Everybody can reference it every time and look back. And I'll mention look back because right now it feels very fresh and you're looking forward. But in 3 years, you're also going to have a really nice record of all the work you've accomplished, which is more gratifying than I can explain to you tonight. But 3 years from now, you'll understand what that means. You'll be able to look back at everything you've done via outlays, all the crazy funding sources that came up and died. Maybe, you know, like the ARPA thing, you'll forget all about it in 3 years, but you'll have a record of what you accomplished during that. And it is a very nice tool, not only for looking forward, but also for looking back. But like Karen said at the introduction of this, it is very much so something that will continue to develop and change. And I promise you, it won't look the same in 3 years. It will have the same formatting and things like that, but the projects will move, the items will move. But when a funding source comes up, like next week, if there's something new, you can skim this list of the priority ones. What were the things that we said were really critical to do and what fits to pull over towards that? You're not gonna have to start from, you know, ground zero or say, oh, everybody pulled together. What do we need to do? You know, you'll have a document that guides you through that decision-making process. Curious if Mark or Karen have anything else to add to that. You guys have been instrumental in this.
I think you really said it all. I mean, it did take a ton of work. You know, it actually for us, it was meetings, not necessarily work, but you know, these guys put it all down here to make it make sense and that kind of thing. And like she said, if you know something new comes in, we just pop it in here. If we need to push something, it'll be, you know, relatively easy to manage and to track. And I was like ecstatic when I got this. I was dreaming about it. We're just kidding.
So no work in Karen's rooms.
There you go. Yeah, I think the real advantage here is that we have a visual that allows us to sort of be able to describe to other individuals. And when we look at the big picture of how are we interfacing with the city, how are we interfacing with the Seneca Nation, what does projects look like throughout the whole city, then this will also help us to coordinate some of the efforts between the school district and those other entities. It also then helps us to be able to communicate where we see ourselves in 4, 5, 6 years, because I think sometimes we have the understanding, hey, we're gonna, you know, put up a field house. Well, that's not gonna happen next fall. You know, I always make a joke that a Dollar General seems to pop up on every corner overnight. Yet, a field house will take us probably 4 years at the very minimum before we actually even start to see it on, start to be in the ground. And those are all things that really take a lot of time and planning, and this helps us to be able to do that. So thank you.
Thanks for involving us in this. Any questions from anybody else?
No. I was impressed when I saw it the first time and I'm still impressed.
Well, we'll continue to help support managing it, of course. This is not, there's no expiration date with this on us. We'll be here.
20 years from now.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for coming down.
Of course. Especially at 5. Thank you.
So next we'll move on to our diversity, equity, inclusion presentation.
So you'll recall Mr. Shamp provided us with a presentation several months ago. This is the first one of the 22-23 school year, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Hey, Justin Yaso, Nyawe Gagwego, Taswe, Nige, Winisade. I'm working with Flip on a little bit, but that's actually stuff that I learned in Salamanca as a student for George Herron back in the day. So basically what I said was, my name is Justin Schaap, and I'm welcoming everybody to be in this space today. I'm the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer. I know I gave a presentation sometime in June, and I want to follow up on a little bit of that stuff. I want to talk about some of the new stuff that's coming up. So here's the presentation outline. We're going to talk about overview of DEI and J as a part of the district's strategic priorities, an overview of our current activities and successes, and then talk about 2 priority areas of growth, specifically grading and assessment, and then the formation of a community diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. This is the task force. We actually approved this as a BOE measure last year in the spring. Okay. Part of our, and hopefully this will be quick, a little bit quicker than the long term. This will be the short term presentation. This is the DEI strategic priorities. We're supporting instruction through professional development opportunities. I'm very thankful for Penny Brady bringing me. We were able to have some pretty robust presentations on the summer. We had another one. We're going to have another one in November. People seem to be really energized about it. Our institutional goals, we're matching our fostering conversations to expand knowledge and experience. The second one is developing more inclusive and equitable school communities. We're actually kind of lucky because we've been building capacity in this area for a long time. You've seen that Canali and her constituents building this in real time in their classrooms. A lot of this work is just already happening through cooperations across New York State. Supporting a diverse learning community. This is where we're going to talk about trying to pushing more into the classrooms, helping them specifically with projects, big and small. Okay. This is some new branding. We're working with Mark to try to push out some of this stuff. This is actually new stuff. We're working on how do we actually promote, and some of this is conversations of things that are happening real time in other school districts. So what are other school districts doing? Both the negative and positive. They're having incidents, they're having witnessing areas of concern. And our response is let's get out in front of it. Let's create some branding, let's create out some stuff that's going to help us communicate out in areas where there's high traffic, or things like sporting events. We want to kind of curb some fan interactions, stuff like that. And then just in our hallways and around there, something snazzy, something that looks good. Okay, and also I want to thank Aaron Strauss for kind of inspiring some of this stuff. This is another area we're going to work on some branding, institutional, and this is the individual DI journey. So this is an institutional diversity, equity, inclusion journey. We're looking at skills and mindsets. It's actually created by a small team a few years ago, about 2 years ago, with a strategic plan. And this is actually, we worked with our language teachers to recreate that plan and put it into Seneca. So how do we communicate culture? How do we communicate inclusion? How do we communicate belonging? is through branding and these kind of exercises. Creating spaces, we're gonna reverse this. You can be able to use it on your Zoom calls. So you want to put this behind you on your Zoom call, you can, we'll send it around to everybody. This is basically explaining what these things are, and I want to make sure Rachel Wolf and Andrea Cook get due credit for their work with this as well. And don't ask me how to pronounce that top part. Carrie can. All right. Next time, okay. All right. Of course, we're talking about summer, fall professional development. I, again, can't talk about this enough. This is actually my first foray presenting this summer. I'm really thankful and grateful for the belief in my ability to deliver some of this product. I think we had some pretty robust engagement, and this just kind of outlined all the different courses they offered. I also want to thank Dr. Beeler for presenting something for the entire district about unconscious bias and allowing everyone to kind of start this journey. Doesn't matter where they are or where they were, everybody's going to be hopefully at least some portion on this journey, starting at that space. Other people are going to be a lot farther along, or hopefully make this more robust into the summer. And as a matter of fact, almost every single day now, a teacher or some faculty member or some staff person is approaching me and saying, hey, when are you going to do this next PD? When are you going to do this next one? I want to attend that next PD. So it's whatever's happening is creating a buzz. All right. Developing inclusive and equitable environments is something we're working on. I try to touch this every single day now. And it's a little overwhelming. And I'm assuming some more of this is going to roll in. So people are now asking me, because I've been trying to send out things on a monthly basis based on the Heritage Months to everyone in the institution, including students, talking about diversity in either this month is Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month. So we're sending something out every single day or there closely on some kind of Hispanic or Latinx biography or event or something like that. And the responses have been absolutely amazing. So something that I'm going to write is going to touch somebody, or is going to be affected to them, is going to affect it, touch their identity, and they're going to reach out to me, and all that does is create more work for me, right, Jerry? Which is great. A lot of times those will be asks. Hey, help me with this. Help me with the equity report for my school. Help me with something that's going to enrich my life. And then so I'll devote some time to them. And I think that's actually amazingly rewarding. I wish I could put them all in there. We do have two that we worked with in our astronomy classes with Dr. Hayes, and the two that are up there. He wanted us to create more stuff that's going to differentiate his astronomy lessons that have more Seneca perspective. So we created two things. This is they are pursuing the bear story, and then the 7 dancing stars. And the 7 dancing stars hopefully will be on a story walk that I'm going to ask Mark and Karen for money for next year. That's my pitch. All right. Fun stuff. Also go around and talk to as many people as I can. These are just some of the recent ones. So Roswell Park has, we're going to be developing a relationship with them through their Center for Indigenous Cancer Research. This is through Dr. Herring. And this is actually comes from work that we did with the My Brother's Keeper grant, where they graciously allowed us to use some of their resources. In exchange, they said, you just got to come talk to us. And I was like, deal. So I went up there and talked to them, and they said, look, we can do all this for you as well. And they're going to talk about creating internships, specifically internships for our school. We talked to Seaver a couple weeks ago. He's all jazzed up about it. They're willing to set aside 2 internships specifically for Salamanca students. And we got to make sure we can capitalize on that. And in addition, they want to help us create something here in our school where students from this area can go and work as interns for their patient negotiation teams, right? They're actually embedded in our communities already for Roswell. Eventually, one of our students can go into the medical field, sit down with someone, learn that field in real time, right in our community at UPC. Secondly, St. Bonaventure, we've been working with them in one critical key area, and that's building out their Indigenous Studies program. I'm gonna do a shameless plug and talk about how I teach at St. Bonaventure on Monday nights and Indigenous Studies. But on top of that, we are building almost every single week, we're building something more at St. Bonaventure. We've been able to build out the language program over there, and it's not just for Seneca language. The goal of doing that is to make sure that students that are coming out of Salamanca that have Seneca language credits are gonna be able to go in and get accreditation to be able to teach Seneca language straight from St. Bonaventure. That's what we identified as a weakness in Salamanca. We're partnering with St. Bonaventure to make that happen, and they're willing to commit to it. We're working with their president, we're working with their friars. We're bringing alumni in. We're gonna bring Karen in. I'm gonna do a shameless plug on Karen as a former alumni. So this is a lot of gears and a lot of I guess conversations. And it's hard to get a larger institution like St. Bonaventure to do anything, much less kind of help a small school that's right next door. But they're willing to do it. And I give credit to a lot of the alumni, people like Brian Moore, people like Clint Nappi, people who've just been saying, and also Sarah, been willing to come in there and say, I want to be a part of this movement. So, and St. John Fisher, we brought them in to work on a larger DEI project. And I'm just gonna be honest, I'm just taking risks. I don't even know what we're doing with them, other than trying to foster relationships with amazing institutions. We bring them in and they want to know about Salamanca from inside out. They want to know about this institution. And their whole purpose is because they don't know us. They want to create those relationships. They don't want to just send a recruiter down here with no sense of what they're doing. And we want to do that too. So we're able to meet with several students, we're able to meet with staff, and we know that the more times we have connections with these teams, with these students, with these former students and current students, the more that if I meet a student who wants to go to St. John Fisher, that I can say, like Lloyd's daughter, I can say, you know what? Go talk to this person. We know them. Here's a nice network contact for you. That doesn't mean they're going to go there, but they're going to have a person that they know that we've networked with. And that's all we want to do. Sometimes is just keep it sort of simple. And then finally, the other thing that we're doing on the external is looking at youth voices, working with a few students, trying to identify more. Youth voices coming out of Buff State. And what they do is work with our English literacy. This lines up with our literacy initiative from last year. How can we get more students who potentially are in our margins and get them active in English, be able to present on something that they care about, build a presentation, go up to Buff State and present to their peers. All they do, I've been there last year, all the peers do is just cheer them on. Even if they get up there and don't do so well, those peers just love them just for being there. It's an amazing program. I'm hoping we can make this more robust. We're piloting it this year. Finally, work on the MBK Salamanca ACE mentoring program. You don't know what that is. You're going to learn a lot more about that in the future. Work with the Allegheny Education Department and the Title VI committee. Two ancillary goals. We're trying to create a culture of mentoring here. We have a great culture for coaching. This is going to be the best coaching culture in the country. Okay, I'll say it. Salamanca's got the best coaching culture in the country. Mentoring internally for academics, we can mimic that. We can create that here. We can do it. And it just takes a little bit of effort. We're going to try to replicate that. We're going to try to create and rely on your networks. That includes everybody in the community. I'm asking everybody right now who's listening, everybody on the board. I'm going to be asking for your networks. Who do you know? Who may you help us with in your network, Janet? Janet knows everybody around here. Okay. How can you help us connect with a few students who, and this is what I've been finding out, talking to students who want to go into career fields and they have nobody that they've talked to. They haven't talked to anybody in that career field yet. I want to crack that. That's a mentoring culture. We can do that externally. Then internally, we're going to create mentoring culture with community members, specifically with students, and peer-to-peer mentoring with students. I'm not the one that's leading it. I'm just trying to be that support staff. Okay.
Hold on, I got questions.
Go ahead.
Go back.
Go.
I know you're on a roll and I don't want to stop you, Bob.
Go.
Explain this to me because let's assume I know nothing about DEI. How is this leveling the playing field for our students here?
Great question. So DEI looks at multiple things. Most of the people that we look at I have to look at and say, how are we providing more resources to students who need them? right? That's what DEI does. It's an action. It isn't sitting there saying, now, and I'll get back to the philosophical stuff a little bit. DEI is going around and saying, hey, I see something that's a deficiency. I can put resources, including myself, into that space in order to provide them with the resources that they need. That's what this is. That's what equity means. That's what I have to do on every single day. So looking at this through an equity lens, that's how these are the projects that are coming up. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. So historically, have our kids had these opportunities before? Or is this more something we see in, let's say, the more affluent districts, the larger districts, suburban
Absolutely.
districts?
So you talk to places like St. John Fisher, and I did talk to them. They do go in. They go purposely to the districts that have a lot of money. They go there. They go to districts that the students are going to. They're going to Victor, New York. They're going to Gates. The fact that when I talked to their DEI person, I had this that Marlo, I asked them specifically, I was like, how many marginalized districts, or I don't want to call it marginalized, but districts that have high diversity, how many of those are you visiting? And he just said, we visit one school in Buffalo. And I was like, let's get you down here. Come on. And he said, let's do it. And to be honest, like we didn't even know what that was going to look like. But it turned into something that was great. We had good conversations. It was a learning experience for me, and it was a learning experience for them. Now they want to follow up and say, how can we build this? So yes, some of this stuff is risky. Like I'm going to tell you, some of it is mapped out, some of it isn't. So taking on new things, trying to look at things differently. That's a part of DEI as well. And by the way, the people that are out there that we're trying to talk about this in the DEI field says, we're going to do that too. So we got other people who are now looking at saying, hey, you know what, Marlo, and I'm asking Marlo to kind of champion this, and he's getting other schools that are saying, we want to do the same thing. We want to follow this lead. And I think, and because they don't know what they're doing either. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to this. Because a lot of this stuff is new. So, and I'll stop, but otherwise I'll keep talking about it. Which I love doing. I love talking. I love being animated. All right, any other questions? Anybody else? Yeah. I'm looking forward to working with Chad on the varsity club. We just announced and because I truly believe, one thing I truly believe is that the avenues for this already exist. We just have to create those new pathways. Like I said, the coaching and the athletics here are absolutely amazing. If we can kind of connect those and create that partnerships with our academics, I think we'll see even more amazing. You already see amazing. We're just gonna make them better. So, all right. I'm asking for help. All right. What are we talking about? Okay, grading for equity. I'm just gonna be honest and say I'm not the best grader. Right? This project was put on me. I was excited about this, but I also have to admit, last year I need some humble pie. Right? I thought I was gonna be able to come in here and just convince people, yeah, let's just talk about grading. Let's make it happen, right, Lloyd? I can just say, we're gonna do this. And it's difficult. People don't necessarily want to talk about assessment and grading. It is one of those things. If you are a teacher, if you've been a teacher, if you know teachers, it's one of those things that they do, right? And they feel like they're really good at it. And we've had a history here of talking about grading for a long time. When I went back to the history, I think last time I presented, it was 2006 when we started this path. And for a large portion of the school, we are moving that conversation. And then for some places, it's been a challenge. And I want to make sure we rise to the challenge. And so one of the things I noticed is when Mark came in, he said, hey, we're going to do this thing. We're going to talk about creating a fearless organization. And I think this is brilliant. Because one of the first things he talked about was success requires a continuous influx of new ideas, new challenges, and critical thought And the interpersonal climate must not suppress, silence, ridicule, or intimidate. And I think that's where we need to get to. We need to talk more about having a fearless organization. We need to bring that conversation out from the admin side and really talk about it in all of our spaces, including talking about teaching and learning. And the one thing that happens in teaching and learning is assessment. And so going into grading and equity in grading, there was a lot of homework I had to do. I'm reading books late at night. I'm saying, hey, how do I get more fluent in grading? This isn't my forte. I'm going to chew on this thing until it doesn't taste good. And so that's where we are right now. I'm just announcing that's where we are. That's where I am. That's where this institution is. So how do we move and build capacity? The changes in the grading practices already began, starting with standard-based grading. But some of this stuff is standard-based grading is one component. We're talking about changing how we grade and assess as a practice. All right, so we're going to have some policy considerations, and I'm going to talk about those tonight. Two policy considerations. One's going to be academic practice, changing our idea of homework and making it more practice and aligning it, and then having our grading processes and assessments in alignment. Right, and I'm lucky to have Tiffany come in. I had a beautiful conversation with her, and I can't wait to work down with it. Finally, we're going to have some formulate implementation processes in summer or fall of 2023. And I, by the way, I have to do this through a DEI lens, which is, by the way, is difficult because I can't force this down. I can't say, you know what, Brad, today I'm going to make you, we're going to eat just turkey for life. Right? I can't force it on Brad. It's not going to work. Brad likes steak, right? Right? He likes the Century Manor food. And I'm saying, nope, you got to eat at Murphy's for life. Right? No, he's not going to want to eat at Murphy's for life. He wants to eat what he wants to eat, right? That's what DEI asks us to do. However, at some point in time, we all have to agree that in some capacity that we're going to move together in concert to understand the reasons behind why we look at grading for equity and then come to some conclusion. Key conversations we're going to communicate change internally and externally, and then aligning grading practice for all students, and then improving for everyone what it means to grade. And I'm asking every single faculty member here, who's the best grader? Who do they think is the best grader? I've had some responses. And that gets tricky, right? Some people say, well, I'm the best grader. Well, I want to talk to the best graders here. I want to talk to them. I want to see what makes them the best grader. I want them to be proud of how they do it. Because if we can identify who they are, then maybe we can bring those practices in. Maybe they're already doing a lot of this stuff and just doing it in those siloed classrooms. All right, grading. Academic practice. This is going to be set for January 2023. Why? Because then it could be implemented throughout the next year. It's not an arbitrary capricious date. It's just a date that allows us to get it for that next year implementation. Academic practice is a new way of thinking about homework. Essentially, we'd be providing practice, preparation, review, extension. All of those require what's called formative assessment. And some people in the back are probably fairly familiar with what this is. And then only would be grading, applying, or demonstrating knowledge. That's it. We already do a lot of this stuff. We do this in our own lives. So if you're practicing, all we're doing is providing formative assessment, means feedback. I'm letting you know where you are. You're letting me know where you are as a student. I'm letting you know how I can help you further so you get to that knowledge. And then once you demonstrate that knowledge, then I can assess it. You demonstrate that knowledge, you show me. We'll go back to the Century Manor. We have an amazing chef, right? And he's cooking the best food, right? That's what you want. He's demonstrating that knowledge. If you have somebody else who's brand new and just walks in the first door and you expect them to practice for a little bit, you're not going to expect them to be able to cook you up the best filet mignon on the menu on day one. They're going to have to practice, right? That's all this is saying. Just boiling it down to more practical stuff. Other than that, you're going to provide them feedback. You're going to help them become a better cook, right? If you want to have a successful business, maybe they already have to know how to cook. but maybe not cook the way you want them to. You have to teach them that, right, Lloyd? All right. We already do this, right? Our athletes practice. This is what we do. Athlete shows up, you tell him to kick the soccer ball with the left foot and he kicks it with the right foot. Right, Lloyd? You're going to show them how to kick it with the left foot, right? Because they're practicing. Yeah, the same is true for our academic practice. I'm just trying to boil this down, make the connections. Right, so all we're trying to do with academic practice versus homework is we're going to support the practice. We're going to support the academic practice. And this is I'm trying to linguistically put this over and over again into this presentation. The academic practice is what we're trying to support. Practice. Homework is academic practice. So here's the policy. I debated whether putting this on there because it might get a little controversial, because there are some controversial things that are on here. However, I'm just going to go over what we're going to be asking the board to take a look at. First thing, academic practice should be a component of a teacher's daily plan to reinforce daily teaching and learning. This directly aligns with the current mantra of the school, teaching and learning. Academic practice should help children learn by providing practice towards mastery of curricular contents and skills, and therefore differentiated according to students' needs and acceleration towards proficiency and mastery. Our goals is to get students to demonstrate mastery of the skills, not just proficiency. Academic practice should develop student ownership of learning by including student independent study and choice. That's exactly what we saw and was rewarded by those teachers today. That's what they described. I was smiling so bright. So I was like, they are telling us academic practice works. The number, frequency, and degree of difficulty of academic practice assignments should be based on the abilities, activities, and needs of the student. This is the one that everybody kind of challenges. Time spent on academic practice will vary per student. Minimum times for student engagement in academic practice per night are as follows. This is how we align it with athletic practice. You don't get better by sitting on the bench. You don't get better by laying down on the field. You get better by getting on the field and practicing. So many hours a night, so many hours pushing in, so many minutes, working on those skills. And that's all we're asking students to do. So we have these broken down 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes each night, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Jerry, give me that smile. Let's make them practice. We're asking them to practice on their academics. A little bit of guidance in a 10-week market period, students should provide at least 20 or more academic practice assignments. That's what we're asking them to do. And then if you have more engagement, if you have higher levels, of course, that's going to raise. 6, as a valid educational tool, academic practice should be clearly assigned with timely feedback provided to the students. Academic practice shouldn't necessarily be graded. You're giving them a formative assessment. You are letting them know through feedback. The grading of academic practice is you see 20% of a student's marking period grade average. That's our current set. Teachers must provide students or caregivers and the building administrations with a written course syllabus that includes grading procedures that includes academic practice. This gets controversial as well. We're asking students to go into college and they've never seen, some of them have never seen a syllabus before. Not all, some of them have, but some of them haven't. So being familiar with a syllabus is exceptional for them. It'll accelerate them. Academic practice grading procedures must be consistent across all grade levels, as well as within departments. Students should be encouraged to attempt all academic practice. Academic practice should receive teacher feedback with attempts for completed or incomplete work. Academic practice incentivized. 9 becomes something that should be ingrained in the institution, because if student Mark and student Karen enters teacher T-Ray's class, they should get the same instruction from an academic practice assessment model from teacher T-Ray to teacher G. That's all this is asking for. They should be confident that when they go from class to class for the same kind of subject, that they're getting a very similar experience for grading practice. Okay. That's, and the board believes in this stuff. Parental involvement. These things are essential to student success. Any questions on academic practice? It's a conversation overdue. And this isn't, by the way, this is just a draft. I'm looking for feedback. I want controversy. Come bring it. Let's have it. Let's hear it. I want to act, this is my practice. Right? I want that feedback. Give me that formative assessment. Tell me where this is in your mind. I'll call Janet later. Okay. Academic practice. I know there's a lot here. There's a lot to discuss. None of this stuff is going to be able to move unless we have conversations about it. From the people that are involved and from the community as well. And getting this out here to talk about is highly important. By the way, I don't know if policies actually make it out this way. I think policies sometimes just get kind of say, here's a policy from BOCES. Here it is. And let's take a look at it and kind of implements because it just makes kind of sense. This is risky. This is us taking risks. It's us moving things forward.
Fearless.
Little fearlessness. A little bit. Yeah, with a smile. Okay. Those are the questions I'm going to move to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Justice Task Force Committee. We started this that was actually the previous fall. And it was just, I don't know, timing's everything. We got a policy in place now, and now we're going to try to announce this because what we're looking for is people in the community that want to work on DEI-J issues, not just within the school, but in the community. We're going to be soliciting them to come help join us, have conversations about the school, and have another way to talk. This is usually, for most communities, this is something called Let's Talk. Let's have a discussion. Let's have another outlet. Okay. We have a lot of things that work for us. We're an amazingly diverse district. And having more voices from people who feel comfortable enough to come and talk about it, creating those spaces for them is highly valuable for any organization, any institution. Be advised this policy initiative is aligned with the New York State Board of Regents, and it's also practiced in spaces that like Ithaca School District, who we're actually modeling from. And they do it highly successful. There's another thing that's, I would say this is less risky, but the initiative, we're going to look at critical parts of the district. This can get concerning. We do this with our Title VI committee. The Title VI committee a few years ago had members that seemed they were engaged. They wanted to know more. We started raising their level of knowledge. In many ways, in concert with the IUC and Dr. Beeler, been able to say, this is how we're understanding the district. Now we're just going to take that model, and we've now seen a tremendous increase in Title VI participation. Went from a committee that had about what, carried 6, maybe 4 active members and somewhere like that, to 16 members active, who are now fully engaged and now put a lot of work on me. And I'm like, stop. It's funny until it's a lot of work. What we're asking this committee to do is assist in the development of implementation of the Strategic Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan. This plan was developed in the fall of 2000, maybe 2 years ago. And so it's there. The administration is aware. Other people are aware. We got to make sure that the community is aware before we put this forward. This is actually vital that the community has some input on this. And of course, anybody's welcome to join. Anybody's welcome to attend. This is open for everybody. We will be soliciting some people because we want to make sure that we get people that come from very specific parts of the community. Okay. Any questions on any of that stuff?
Yeah. When did the J get added into DEI?
That's a great question. So a lot of, in my role, I have to try to pay attention to the winds of change, right? And as soon as I came in, for this job, most positions had already added the J, right? It said, we're gonna look at justice. When you look at, diversity, equity, inclusion, and I do my, professional development, it's hard to just talk about diversity, equity, inclusion without having a conversation about justice. Because the only way you can get to understand diversity, equity, inclusion is actually get to the point where your ultimate goal is not only discussion, but an implementation of justice. And by the way, this is actually an American core tenet. This isn't anything that's new. This is how the United States legal system works. I got a law background, so if you're gonna leave justice out, I'm like, what's going on? I kind of have to have that inside of me. I didn't go and get, just spend, tens of thousands of dollars to leave justice out of the conversation. So whenever we can get to justice, that's where we should be. And by the way, most of the time when we talk about the community, that's really what they understand. They'll understand diversity a little bit. They'll understand inclusion a little bit. They tend not to understand so much equity in general, but they'll immediately, you start talking about justice, those concepts come very fast and very easy. So that's why. A great question. Any other questions?
I got another one.
Yeah.
So in this proposed policy, you mentioned that it's up to the board to buy into this, but I disagree. Your last paragraph on there kind of spells it right out, what we've always found. The Board of Education believes that parental involvement in students' academic practice is essential to a student's academic success. Parents are expected to encourage and monitor completion of academic practice assignments and, to the extent possible, provide conditions conducive to such study.
Absolutely.
Did you find the magic wand?
Magic wand of getting parents engaged.
Yep.
I think
We all know, as parents, we're gonna move mountains to make sure our kids are at practice.
absolutely.
We're gonna move mountains to make sure they're at that
Absolutely.
game. We're gonna move mountains to make sure they're academically eligible to make sure they get to that game.
Absolutely.
But we're not moving mountains to make sure that they're studying for the tests, preparing for the exams, doing their homework or practice.
Mhm.
So where does that magic wand come in to get that mindset shift? You're onto it. We got to get the community and the parents to buy into it.
Mhm.
But how do we get that mindset shift? The shift. We got to get them to value academics as much as they do athletics. And I do it too. I'm one of those parents that make sure that my kids were always at practice, always at their games, always at stuff. But on the other side of it, we also helped them with their homework, made sure that they were doing their studying, and made sure they were doing their stuff. But we arranged our schedules completely around sports. Am I right, Chad? Is that what we do as parents?
First.
Yeah.
This is a great discussion piece because we're doing this with chronic absenteeism right now. We're looking at how can we brand this? How can we bring this out? How can we have this larger discussion about, missing a day? And what that is leveling expectations on the parents. It's saying the school district is saying, these are our expectations and they're not just minimum, they're high. And we're asking you to get to that level.
You brought up that point about the syllabus, and as a parent, and I know we have the parent portal and there were different things when my kids were in school, but it's knowing when those assignments are due to be able to remind them and to check on them and to know, when you got a parent that is busy and is working, and some parents are working 2 different jobs or different shifts, you need to know when your kid has something due so you can follow up with it. And we have this long range plan. And, you look at that, and to me as a parent, I'm thinking to myself, one of the things I've always told my girls are get a calendar and write down when your assignments are due. So you take that long range plan and you turn it into a personalized calendar for a student that has every syllabus of every course on there. So parents at a glance know this is what you have to do.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. I was in a meeting the other day with a student and it was a mentor meeting. And I'm not gonna say who it was with, but it was somebody who was absolutely amazing. And the student wants to become a business marketer. So we said, we're gonna get you in front of one of the best business minds in the area. And they agreed, this person agreed, spent their time with us. And I was very gracious and appreciative of them to do so. Coming out of that meeting, that person told this student to go and look at some entrepreneurial colleges. And that caused me to go look at them too. And one of the entrepreneurial colleges that he asked us to look at said, if you're an entrepreneur, what kind of challenges are you experiencing? And then look at those challenges over and over again until you can get to a solution, tech-based, et cetera, that's going to help you create something. And so while you're talking about, getting a syllabus out there on paper, I'm looking at which one of these students are going to create an app, the syllabus app, that's going to help every single parent in here link that up to their phone. And so they're going to be able to look at it and say, your assignment's due tomorrow on this. It's on my app. It's on the syllabus app, right? So I'm not telling the students what to do. I'm just saying this is what's going through these places. They're looking for challenges in these spaces. We don't have a syllabus per se for every class now, but if we can get a syllabus app or something that looks like that, could be for colleges, it could be for high school, and then you're getting it sent to you or on Mark's phone, which I see him check periodically because he's getting dinged up. Yeah, right. It's coming to everywhere. It's hitting you. You got an app? We got an app for the other day. Are you allowed to talk about this yet? The yeah, the African intelligence. There's a problem out there where students are getting not just students, but adults or people are playing contact sports are getting hurt. And so they developed a system. They saw a challenge, they saw something, and they said, let's create something to help us, a tool, help us understand it. They created it, and we're fearless enough to say we're going to check that out, and we're gonna make sure that our students are going to be safe, and we're going to find better ways. And that's all this is doing as well. So, we can do big, bold things, and I agree. We have it. What's the magic wand? I don't know yet. I don't know if it's a syllabus app because it doesn't exist yet, but maybe it is. Maybe there's a student in Salmague who's going to create the syllabus app and save our lives.
One of them was gonna create a magic wand.
Or the magic wand. Yes.
Like to see that.
All right. Who's anybody else? Say ESCO guy. I like to talk. So when Mark told me I was going to do this, I was like, hooray. All right. Let's go. All right. If not, I appreciate your time. Now I scan out. Now I go in.
Thanks, Justin. Okay. That's great. All right, we can move on to public communications. We have anyone from Title VI,
Other than me, no.
other than Gary? No? You got any updates?
I guess kind of, at our last meeting, we were talking about, already talking about budgets. Trying to think about what we look at for the remainder of this year and what we look at for next year. I think Karen brought it up at the last board meeting that she's already thinking next year's budget.
Yep.
Getting good. So as Title VI, we gotta be in that same mindset. What are we gonna do with the enormous amount of funding we get? How do we plan for it? What do we use it for? What kind of initiatives can we create? So, yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at with Title VI. And Justin was right. We do have a lot more participation with Title VI, which is great to see. We have some new parents to the district. We have some new members to the committee. It's awesome to see, and I'm really excited that we're starting to get more people engaged, more people invested in educational opportunities. So, Title VI seems like it's on the upswing, and hopefully soon we'll have a little more consistency with the new hire. So we're all anxious to see how that went.
Awesome. Thank you. And we do have somebody.
Simon Blue, did I say that right? I was asked to talk about regarding other community concerns, if I pronounced the right name right. Did somebody sign up to talk about community concerns? Did I pronounce your name wrong?
No, I thought this was the sign in.
Oh, that's okay then. It's all good.
Okay. Well, you could have talked if you would have wanted to. That's fine.
It's your full room now.
Yeah. So we.
Yeah.
We can move on to the central office message. Who would like to go first, Ms. Ginichi?
Sure. I have a couple updates. I've had the pleasure of working for these past couple of weeks with some instructional coaches, particularly Becky Aaron, Anastasia, and Kelly Calarco, under the leadership of Penny Beatty. They have held their big 4 data meetings, and the amount of work that goes into those meetings is remarkable. Right down to nitty gritty of right to questions associated with data and how we're going to move our students forward and progress monitoring them. From those meetings, we've added on a couple things, a little change from last year. They've actually welcomed some changes, and I'm grateful for that. We've added on some progress monitoring of Ames Web, thanks to Sue Schnapper. She was able to just whip up Ames Web for me, roster kids within the last couple of weeks and get kids in to be benchmarked and progress monitored. So just a huge thank you to Sue. Sue also was able to sit with me for almost an entire day and train in Talent Ed, Performance Matters, PDF, ASAP, Envision. She's just great. She knows every program there is in and out. One of the main themes we walked away with in the big 4 data meetings in each grade level was to start focusing on celebrating small successes. It's very easy to get down when you look at data and the gaps that kids have, but switching that mindset of the small successes. And we've only been here about a month, and we've already seen a lot of small successes. So they've been openly sharing them with each other with their teams. I want to thank Michaela. She stopped everything she was doing. I asked her to take me on a field trip of the Seneca Nation Administrative Building and the Early Learning Center. And so within that, I want to thank Teresa and Carrie, because I was able to get a tour within the tour while they were working, and I learned a ton. On November 7th, we'll be going to the Faith Keeper School and taking a field trip out to Steenburg. So. And then in front of you, you have our attendance policy. Included in that is the presentation that we did last night in a public forum. I had some helpers with that. I want to thank Lloyd and Chris Sieber and Nikki Beaver, who were there last night as support and help build the plan. Our family school liaisons also were able to look at the plan with me and see it from their perspective, along with Maddie, who's our attendance officer. A lot of different perspectives went into this. We will begin rolling it out to grade level chair people and team leaders. And then eventually, tomorrow we'll actually roll it out to the principals just to put the last set of eyes on it. And then it'll be uploaded as a public document on our website. Eventually that'll be fine. Some highlights of that plan are we took the approach of, in 2021, we started a plan, but it wasn't very restorative. It had a lot of good information in it that we used in conjunction with our board policy. You'll see a lot of that information in it, but we also took the approach of the restorative practices. And you're going to see in the plan that it includes a tiered approach, tier 1, 2, and 3, very similar to our MTSS plan. We do a lot with academics with tiers, and the tiers should look the same for behavior and attendance. So that's the alignment there. That's a snapshot. Any questions? Thank you.
Two things. Finance committee, remember that our finance meeting next month is going to be on the 10th, not on the 14th. And now that our long-term facilities plan is done, I will update our long-term financial plan and then get that presented to the board as well. My goal is to get that done by the end of the year. Not the school year, but the calendar year. So I'll present in January.
Awesome.
Great to kick off budget season.
Yeah. with all of our dreams, right?
You know what? That's all I have.
Okay. And we'll start with the board message, start with Flip, you have anything tonight, Flip?
Sure. I went to NIA in Oklahoma City. And I just want to share with you one, I really appreciate the board getting me out there. Hadn't been to NIA in a very long time. And if there's an observation, and it's really, I think it's so crucial, is that when we were young bucks, and we were involved in the Indian movement and Indian country in general, we talked a lot. We were talkers. We talked about what should be and what people could do. The young bucks, and when I say that, I'm talking about really young parents, that age group. But throughout Indian country, they are now starting to do what we talked about. So when I was growing up, you're going to have diabetes, probably. The young bucks are saying, oh no, no, they're changing their diets, they're changing their nutrition, they're becoming more physically fit. There's a movement in Indian country, like all these dudes are like really taking good care of themselves. What people don't know also is in terms of the language here, and it's really important, is now being taken back into the home with proficient speakers who are now teaching their children to speak Seneca. That number is probably around 25 young parents here in Ohio. That's a remarkable win, and that's what we've been trying to do for years. There's other things that are happening also, but I just want to share with you the excitement that I have in watching the young ones do. We were just talking about parents, you know, just maybe in that discussion, we go to those young ones and say, what is it that we need to do to get parents involved? You know, because it's been, you know, I got involved in Indian Ed in '76, and we still haven't come up with that magic wand. But maybe these young ones are, and there's a lot more of them. I found that when I was at NIA, how many people had PhDs, and all of the professionals. And I want to end this, is just, I want you to know there's a lot of good things happening in India. That's really, really huge, and it affects us as citizens. And I think that diversity and all of that is what creating great citizenship. You know, thinking long term, those types of things. But I want you to know also, I got to tell you, I went down there, I went all the way to Oklahoma City to catch COVID. I was great for 3 days and then done. But in that 3 days, I want you to know, and I'm really have to apologize for some names, but I want you to know that Rachel Wolf, Andrea Cook, Gabby, Michela, Gary Muswell, there was 2 of our social workers. I can't think of their names. I apologize. They're on fire. Those guys are on fire about what they do. And they are doing what a lot of Indian country schools are seeking. So the school here, Salamanca, is really out front. But we have this really talented group of people that are fighting their side, you know, just fighting as hard as they can. Again, it's a call to duty on a moment's notice. They're going to do it, you know. And I got to witness that. And I just wanted to, I'll close it by just saying that idea of that land acknowledgement. Gabby wrote that.
She was a big part of it. Yeah.
It's damn good. It's really good. The first time I heard that, I was like, Yes. And then the other night, that fool Bill Mayer, is it Bill Mayer? He's got a TV program. He put down land acknowledgement in Indian country. Like, oh. I'm gonna make a trip to wherever he televises this. We're gonna have a discussion. But he had that classic, get over it. That was his response. Get over it. Basically, indigenous people, get over it. You know, we're gonna get over it by educating. So everyone understands that. But again, hats off to that group that went. They did a great job. And again, this entire district is on fire. I saw it there. Talked to so many people. I had a long discussion with Winnebagos. And if there's one thing that I'd like to see is, and I think we're on that path, is that they have a sort of a pathway or a process for their leadership and for their students. And there's a plan in terms of what they're doing. If we made a mistake back in the 60s, it's that we have to continue to strengthen the partnership with our governments. If they're in the game with us, we have progress. If they're watching. But just know all of you guys are doing a marvelous job. I was so impressed where we are at, and I sat in the middle of Indian country and talked to all these people, other Indians, what they're doing. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. So we're just on the brink of all the possibilities of funding. Karen, we got dollars, we got people. I just think there is no limit, you know, where we can go. But we have to keep building the relationship. That's what's really key. So thank you to all of you for keep doing the great things that you're doing. I appreciate you guys.
Okay.
Well, on that note, I was gonna tell Ray Halley that I appreciated the safety committee last week, but I see he's not in here tonight. But last week we had a safety committee meeting, and it was really nice to sit down, meet some of the SROs, go over some of the stuff that the school has for plans and things that they see in front of them for safety issues and everything else. And it was just good to hear that the plans, the SROs, I was pretty impressed with the response. I mean, it's not just a job with them. They're highly involved. They know names. I mean, that's more than what you can ask for a lot of the stuff. And it was nice to see that, especially with some occurrences over the weekend and throughout that always happen. And it's just, they're looking for the unexpected, and it proves sometimes that the unexpected can happen a couple days after a meeting like that. So it was just wanted to say good job on that end. The other end is the congratulations to the school, the Chad, the football team, the big win. I mean, it's been 10 years since we were league champions, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the school and everything like that. Which leads to, you know, just congratulating Brooke and Brandy on their accomplishments. We've had other teachers that have been highly invested and have got accolades like that. And it's good to see that from our school, a small school, or, you know, having the teachers very vested into what they do is a huge thing. And which leads me to the random thing of just I was looking through some of the meeting, and it didn't dawn on me until I had to look up really what longevity meant next to a person's name when they were getting hired or becoming that. And just a call out to Pete Weishut, the 47 years as being involved in basketball. I mean, that is far beyond what anybody could ask anybody to do. And if you do it that long, it's not just a job, it's because you enjoy it. And I just wanted to acknowledge that everybody else has a long ways to go before we get 47 years on that. And lastly, as he just says, Dad always rambles on when he's talking. Just wanted to call out to my son, easy, happy third birthday.
Brad?
I want to thank everyone again for the gifts.
Yes.
We got a cutting board for the steakhouse. Thank you to the presenters. And Nick's dressed them for the call outs for the restaurant, your gift cards in your mailbox.
Dale?
I'd like to say, the Century Manor has great food. You know. I'd like to congratulate the working group Randy as well, that's a great honor to receive from state ed. And I hope we get to share that with everybody. I mean, it's a great thing. Justin, keep up the good work. On to some great stuff. Forge ahead. Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Gary?
I want to say that the Century Manor. Yeah, obviously, congratulations to our two illustrious teachers who left us early. It's a pretty good honor, and I was glad that they actually took a few minutes to explain it to us. Every time we do a recognition, I always ask speech, and sometimes we hear something, sometimes we don't. I was glad they actually took a few minutes to explain all that to us. And congratulations to them. I also wanted to just talk a little bit about, went to a great event last week. Went over to Prospect Elementary for the trunk or treat. That was an awesome turnout, especially for a pretty chilly night. It was cold standing out there waiting in line, and it was a great turnout though. And I don't mean that just on the kids' end, I mean on people who were actually there with their trunk set up. I thought that was a great turnout. It was pretty awesome. Standing out there in the cold and just, they were all welcoming to the kids. It was great. I really enjoyed that. And of course, after standing outside for 45 minutes, we were cold and we had to go. So we hurried up and scurried out of there. But yeah, it was a great event, and congratulations to all who were a part of it and, helped with that. That's really all I wanted to say tonight, but with the presentation and even a little bit with what Flip was saying a little while ago, it brought something, to my mind. And as we're talking about DEIJ tonight, and even Flip mentioned, land acknowledgement, it just wanted to share something. It's interesting that land acknowledgement has become so prevalent and it's so talked about. I'll share with you, when we first started this journey down land acknowledgement, I was actually asked a couple months ago, would I be willing to read the land acknowledgement statement? I said no, instantly no, because it's not my role or responsibility to read it. I'm not acknowledging my own land. I'm not acknowledging the loss of my own land. That's not for us to read. It isn't. And I see it all too often where people are asking Indigenous members of the communities, hey, can you read this for us? No, that's wrong. Completely wrong. I even had to mention this to my own daughter. She goes to Albany University and she's a part of their Native American group there. They were asked a week and a half ago by Sage to come over and do a presentation. Well, the group didn't actually know exactly what it was other than a presentation, and it was something along the lines of the Every Child Matters movement, because their group did something in Albany and Sage wanted a presentation. Well, they didn't tell them until they got there that they wanted them to review and read their land acknowledgement statement. My daughter called me afterwards and told me that, yeah, they read the land acknowledgement. And I said, why did you read it? They actually asked you to read it? And she says, yeah, and we read it. And I'm like, okay. So we had a good conversation about why that was wrong with them to even ask. And of course, not knowing or understanding and just excited that they were asked to do it, they did it, her and her fellow students. So I kind of give them a quick little, this is why it's not appropriate. This is why you shouldn't have done it. And if you're asked again, politely decline. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to, be snarky or anything. You can politely decline. But if you want to go into details, use some of the information that I give you in this conversation. But just to keep that in mind, it's not up to us to read those. It's not up to us to acknowledge those. It's not our fault that our land was taken. So I just want to leave you with that.
Thanks, Gary. I just wanted to say congratulations to the Brooke, and Ally, and to Mrs. King. I mean, it's really great to see where, you know, as a board, and I know I've said it several times, that, you know, if there's a way to think outside the box, or if there's something that you want to do, don't be afraid to bring it to the board, because we're trying to support that outside the box thinking, and to be creative, and to maybe do things that weren't the norm. So like you talk about revising the grading, and I love to hear that we have something out there that, yeah, it might be a little controversial, just like when we wanted to fly the progressive pride flag. Some people are against it, but it's what the students brought. It was, not every school does it, but that doesn't matter. Every school doesn't have to do it, because we're not every school. We're different. And that's what I like, and that's what I want to promote, is that we don't have to be like every district. We want to be different. We want to be the leaders. You know, hearing that we're doing things that other districts aren't, man, it just gets my head bigger and bigger and bigger, you know. So Carrie says something like,
Stop it.
bring me back down to reality, but I love hearing what we're doing and the progress that we're making, and it stems all around. It's not just, you know, athletics, it is academics, it is, you know, our extracurricular that we're trying to bring to all of our students, and how we're trying to make our community better, because I think the school has to be the driving force into help bringing that community, and making it the best place that we can be. So, you know, just like the land acknowledgement, guess what? I wouldn't have known it was disrespectful to ask you, you know, to read it. Now I know, you know, and I think it's that we have those conversations, we understand why, because I can only have the empathy. I can't have the understanding, right? Like, that's because I'm not Native American. So I appreciate it, and it's good to know, because then I can become more educated, and I think that's what we're all trying to accomplish. So I just want to say that everybody keep doing a great job, and I will get my football tickets so I can go to the game, because I did get the reminder that we have to buy them. I can't just walk in. I couldn't bet it be. Well, I did want to say congratulations to everyone, and thank you for the gifts. That's awesome. And I even got my Bolt House food cheese that was a special request, like with my veggies. So thank you to everybody. And I can plug the Century Manor too, if there's going to be a. Okay.
All right, up to me. So, we had mentioned, and actually, I'm just gonna encourage everyone to enjoy the snacks. Yeah, so have at 'em. I'm gonna work my way through all the snack piece here. Those don't work its way down, so.
I was taking it home.
Oh, all right. So you're part of it. We saw that Mr. Haley is out from the meeting today. He was here for a couple hours this morning. He has fallen ill, along with many of our other staff members and many of our students. So I'll start with the safety first. Wash your hands. There is, and this is just an acknowledgement, you know, for all of our parents and kids, learners in school. Prospect, Seneca, and the high school are both seeing a relatively significant increase in a variety of illnesses. The latest seems to be a stomach bug that's working its way around. So please just make sure you're taking care of yourself. If you're sick, stay home, wash your hands. I also wanted to do just a couple thank yous. One to our administrative team that we see out here in front of us. Another one to Mrs. Giannici. Between the two people or groups that I just mentioned, there's been a pretty significant shift and just change in the district. With Mrs. Giannici coming in, pretty much everyone that the board is looking at, if we look up into the seats with the exception of one individual, has had a boss change. And that can be relatively stressful. And I wanted to simply acknowledge that. Thank you for the cooperation, the work that has gone into that. And I believe it's been a pretty smooth transition because Mrs. Giannici has done her homework well before she came on board. I figured I'd spend the first couple of days walking her around, showing her what's going on. I didn't even have a chance to meet with her because I didn't make an appointment. She already had that Monday filled up. And I was like, okay, she's off and running. I'll just get out of the way. So the attendance plan that you saw here is another example of the work that she has undertaken and that she has produced in a very quick amount of time with the help of some of our other administrators like Mrs. Beaver. But I also just wanted to acknowledge and say thank you to the board because you've heard a lot of good things tonight that are happening. There's still a lot of work to do. But a lot of that, and I would say the majority of that is enabled because of the work that the board does. And this isn't just because it's Board Recognition Month, but because when you sit at this board table, you provide a consistent focus on what's best for students. And I will tell you that that is relatively rare in school boards across New York State, probably across the country. You are one board, you're consistent with what your message is. If it's good for kids, we will support it. Make kids smarter. We have our board goals that we'll go over shortly in a little more detail. But I just wanted to express, probably on behalf of all of our administrative team who may or may not know what it's like to work for a board that is fractured or divided or has personal agendas that they've come to with, and that can really dismantle a district and not allow them to do the good work that they should be doing. So I just wanted to extend my gratitude once again for the work that you do every day and the cooperation that you provide each other. I know that you don't always agree on everything, but you always agree on doing what's best for kids, and that always agrees with us. So thank you.
Thanks.
Well said.
All right. Let's move on to our consent agenda. So we need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Ted. Second by Flip. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. We have no old business. Under new business, we have our consolidated services unit memorandum of agreement. So we need a motion to approve the CSU's MOAs.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Dale, second by Brad. Are there any questions on either of the MOAs? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Item B is our Salamaker Support Staff Organization MOA. So we need a motion to approve the SSSO MOA.
Motion. Second.
Who made that motion? Ted? And who seconded it? So we got a motion by Ted, second by Carrie. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Item C, we're creating some positions, social emotional learning coordinator. There's 3 positions. A SAMI grant coordinator, SAMI program coordinator, and SAMI regional teachers. So we need a motion to approve the creation of those positions. Motion by Flip.
Second.
Second by Dale. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Item D is our school calendar has been revised to amend the half day on November 4th to a full day on Tuesday, November 8th. So we need a motion to approve the school revision calendar. Motion by Flip.
Second.
Second by Brad. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Item 8 is our personnel consent agenda, which is listed. We need a motion to approve all of the personnel consent agenda items.
Motion.
Motion by Tad,
Second.
second by Dale. Are there any questions All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. And do we have anyone here that we're gonna introduce?
We do not, actually, all four of the individuals that, well, three, one twice, that we appointed to new titles are currently employees, who have just, sort of moved around within the district. So they are not here, but we welcome them once again to the Warrior family, and for most of them, it's more or less a promotion. So we're looking forward to working with them in their new role and encourage them to continue their professional growth.
Item 9 is our board information and reports. So we have our Indigenous Education meeting minutes. From September 14th, October 12th, our first readings of our policies. Our policies reviewed with no changes, and our upcoming events. There is the school board conference, the 27th through the 29th. On November 3rd will be our personnel instruction committee meeting. Also the Allegheny Cattaraugus School Boards Association meeting. And then November 3rd is also Indigenous Policy Forum, which will be at 6 p.m. here. And November 8th will be our next Board of Education meeting. So I'd like to see everybody here.
Do a quick plug-in
Sure.
for the November 14th, Hawaiian Community Dinner, or Tea Club dinner.
Is that for Thanksgiving?
That is our.
Oh, you're doing that again? Of course. Oh, I'm so excited. That's awesome. Are we gonna have that on our website?
Yes.
I mean, last time we had, I think the last time we hosted it, we had 1,000 people?
Yeah.
So are the kids bringing in donations again? or how
Yeah,
does
we're
that
back at it. This is back to the good things that we used
Wow.
to do. Right?
Brings the potatoes.
work? Yeah, I mean, I went
Get
to
your
all
potatoes
the.
now because they're all gone.
Well, exactly. I mean, I remember when Jordan did it, I think I went to Aldi's and we bought like 100 pounds of potatoes. Because she was trying to be the top buyer in her class, and it was like, I looked and all of these kids brought like all these potatoes. I think like, oh, there's gotta be
Oh,
about
yeah.
1,000 pounds of
You're
potatoes.
right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight, presenting tonight. And with that, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion by Carrie, second by Tad. All in favor?
I.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.